Misinformation, mistaken explanations and mistaken calls. A number of years ago, when I was directing a club session, I was called to the table. An experienced partnership had not been forthcoming about explaining a bid. One told me they had no agreement, which I found extremely hard to believe. When I pointed out to him they were an experienced partnership and surely they must have an agreement, he then advised me there is no law to say there has to be a partnership agreement. So let's start by clarifying there most definitely is a law that says you must have a partnership agreement. You are both required to know the fundamentals of the system you are playing and be able to explain it to the opposition. Yes, there will be times when something comes up that you have genuinely not discussed, but this should be very rare. As I said in the session on alerting, bridge is a game of full disclosure. You must correctly explain the meanings of bids and your discards and signals when asked. To not do so when you know the answer is misinformation and is a serious infraction. If you genuinely don't know, you should say so. If you are asked for an explanation, you must never start your explanation with the words, I think, or I'm not sure, but. A mistaken explanation is misinformation, so is an infraction of the laws, and, if the other side are damaged, an adjusted score will be given by the director. Mistaken explanations are nearly always, I would hope always, in error. I'm sure you can all think of a recent time when you have innocently given the wrong explanation of your partner's bid. If you have more than one regular partner, this is easy enough to do. However, if you do it, you have to realise it is an infraction in the same way a lead out of turn, insufficient bid, call out of rotation, or revoke is, and the opposition are entitled to redress if they have been disadvantaged by it. Giving an explanation that is wrong because you actually didn't know and you thought you would have an educated or uneducated guess is a double infraction and subject to a procedural penalty. So, again, if you genuinely don't know, say so. The opposition can always call the director who can take you away from the table while your partner gives the explanation. It's important to differentiate between a mistaken explanation and a mistaken call. This is the one that causes the most annoyance to players. Let's say I hold the following hand. Ace, Jack, 10, 7, 6 of spades, 6 of hearts, the King, Queen, 7, 3, 2 of diamonds, and the Queen, 5 of clubs. I'm playing with someone I haven't played with a lot, but we have agreed that a 2-no trump overcall of a major is the unusual 2-no trumps showing both minors and less than 12 high card points. My right-hand opponent opens one heart and I bid 2-no trumps, thinking in the moment that we were playing that it is 5 spades and 5 of a minor with 12 to 15 high card points. My partner alerts it and, upon an inquiry from my left-hand opponent, advises the opposition that it shows 2 5-card minors with less than 12 high card points. At this stage, the opposition have received the correct explanation of the call. The mistake was in my actual call. My partner will bid on as if I have the hand I am supposed to have. At no stage am I to advise anyone that I have made a mistake. Regardless of what happens, the result will stand. In the situation just described, let's say the auction continues with my left-hand opponent passing. My partner now bids 3 clubs as that is their best minor. I have unauthorised information that my bid has been misunderstood, even though it is my fault, and I have to be careful I do not act on this. So, can I bid 3 spades to try and get out of a bad situation? Yes, I can, but my partner must interpret that 3 spades as what it would mean in the system. It might be asking for a hold in spades, in which case, if they don't have one, they will bid 4 clubs. You may end up stumbling into the right contract, and lucky for you if you do. You've probably heard about never rescuing your partner. That probably applies in this case, and should three clubs become the final contract, you just have to sheepishly put your hand down, apologise, and suddenly realise you urgently need to go to the toilet. I note that if the director rules that I acted on unauthorised information and this has caused damage to the opposition, there can be an adjustment and penalty. But if the situation was reversed and my bid was correct, as that is what we are playing, and partner forgot and explained it as two 5-card minors with less than 12 points, there has been an infraction. Again, I am in possession of unauthorised information and must be careful not to act on it. In this instance, though, if my partner or I was to become declarer, I would call the director before the lead is made and explain there has been a mistaken explanation and then give the correct one. The last bid, made by my opposition, may then be changed and the auction can continue. Regardless of whether or not this happens, if the opposition feels they have been damaged by the mistaken explanation, they can ask for an adjusted score. Let's look at an example. I hold King Queen 5 of spades, King Jack 3 of hearts, King 8 6 of diamonds, and the Jack 6 4 3 of clubs. My partner opens one club, 4 plus, and my right-hand opponent overcalls 2 spades. I ask what the bid means and am told it is a 6-card suit and 6 to 10 points. On that basis, I make the very logical bid of 3 no trumps, which is then passed out. When dummy goes down after a spade lead, my partner has a 13 count with 5 clubs, 3 diamonds, 3 hearts including the ace, and 2 little spades. So it all looks fairly promising. The jack of spades in right-hand opponent's hand wins and the ace comes back, and then I have to take the third round. I keep track of what my opposition are playing, and I am rather unimpressed when I don't make my contract, as my right-hand opponent has their promised 6 spades, but they had a 13 count. Right-hand opponent has already played 9 of their points. My King Queen of spades have been played, as have the Ace King of hearts, and a heart has been discarded by a left-hand opponent on a spade. So now I lead the final heart towards my jack, happy to lose to left-hand opponent's queen, as I know I am now going to get a lead of a minor and make the remainder of the tricks, and therefore make 10 in total. So you can imagine that I would be unhappy when right-hand opponent pops up with the Queen of Hearts and makes 3 more spade tricks to take me 2 away. I call the director. In this situation, the director needs to establish which was wrong, the call or the explanation. This is easier in tournaments where people have a system card. In club sessions, you have to rely a bit more on honesty. If the agreement is actually that the 2 spade overcall is intermediate values, 11 to 15 high card points with 6 spades, then I have been disadvantaged. The explanation that I got has told me that right-hand opponent cannot have the Queen of Hearts. If I had the correct explanation, I would know they very likely did, and so would not have played the heart, but instead played to make my tricks in the minors, to make 9 tricks, which would have worked. This should be an easy decision for the director to adjust the score to 3 no trumps by me, making 3. But if the agreement is that the 2 spade overcall is indeed weak, and right-hand opponent forgot this, or maybe decided to deviate a little from the agreement, then I would not be entitled to any redress. I would likely be grumpy about it, but that would be the case. Note that in this latter situation, it would be good to keep a mental note of it, and experienced directors will be aware of players who may not always be 100% honest with their explanations or deliberately misbid, as doing this is an infraction, although we'll talk about psychs and false carding soon. In the situation where the partners don't agree on what the bid was, and in the example given, left-hand opponent honestly thought the 2 spades was weak and right-hand opponent thought it was intermediate, the laws tell the director to rule it was a mistaken explanation, so therefore an infraction, if there is no evidence to the contrary. It's not just always in the auction you might give or be given a mistaken explanation. It could be about the meaning of a lead, signal, or discard. Again, if you are asked and you know, say so. If you aren't sure, don't know, say so. If your opponent can't give an explanation of the meaning of the lead or discard, then you can call the director who can take them away while the other one gives you the explanation. In this situation, say your partner was taken away because they couldn't say what your discard meant. If you don't have a partnership agreement, then you still say that. But if you do, you must disclose it. Just like with a mistaken explanation of a bid, if I was to ask what a discard of the four of hearts meant and was told low encouraging, and so made my decision to finish a certain way because of this, and in fact it transpired that the other player had the king, and this has cost me one or more tricks, I should call the director. The director will establish if the explanation was wrong, because they in fact play high encouraging, in which case I get an adjustment. Or if it was a mistake by the player who made the discard and the explanation is correct, in which case there is no adjustment. Again, you should make a mental note of this, and the director should also note it in case it happens again. So in summary, a mistaken explanation is an infraction of the laws and, after a mistaken explanation, and a failure to alert when required is a mistaken explanation, if the opposition are damaged, they are entitled to an adjusted score to restore equity. A mistaken call is not an infraction and no adjustment made, unless the director rules the partner of the player who made the mistaken call uses this unauthorized information to their advantage. But what about psychs and false carding? Surely they are misinformation? The short answer is no. Some players do occasionally like to psych. A psych is basically a bid that is a gross distortion of either points or trumps. For example, my partner hits past and right hand opponent opens with one heart and I hold 7-3 of spades, 10-7, 6 of hearts, Jack-6, 5-3-2 of diamonds, and the 7-3-2 of clubs. And I now overcall one spade. This is a psych, and I have only done it in the hope of trying to prevent my opposition finding what looks to be a certain slam. This is perfectly legal. However, it is important that your psych misleads your partner as well as your opposition. So in this sort of situation, I have to be prepared for the fact my partner might have a decent 8 count with 4 or 5 spades, and we end up playing 4 spades double for 6 away. What is not illegal is for a partnership to have a specific agreement that says, for example, in seat 3, if not vulnerable, we always double or psych, and then not disclose that to the opposition. There was quite a bit to get your head around there, but hopefully it makes sense. Anytime the opposition does not have what you were told they have, call the director and let them sort out if it was a mistaken explanation or mistaken call. If someone psychs against you, you don't need to call the director unless your club has a rule of no psychs in a particular type of session, or a requirement that psychs are reported to the director. As a matter of good ethics, experienced players should not psych against inexperienced players. If you are a novice or junior and someone psychs against you, go and talk to the director and hopefully they will have a word to them about the ethics of it. That's all for this session. Don't forget the golden rule. Be honest with your explanations and never give an explanation unless you are sure it is correct.